Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron?
You done messed up, Aaron!
Aaron is here. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. Okay, guys, I have some updates for you on the international numbers for Scientology, and they are so much worse than I could have even imagined. I think the last time I did this exercise, I think my generous estimate for the number of Scientologists that were in the world was around 35,000. I've crunched the numbers again. I've created a whole new version of my spreadsheet, and my generous estimate for the number of Scientologists in the world, including all staff members, all Sea Org members, all public, is 26,000 members. And later in the video, I can circle back and show you exactly how I break down those estimates between staff members at Class 5 organizations, staff members at missions, staff members at Sea Org organizations, both Sea Org service organizations, continental management units, middle management, international management level organizations, and also how I break it down by public. The public are the paying Scientologists in the Class 5 world and the mission world and the Sea Org, some of the Sea Org service delivery orgs. We can circle back and show those breakdowns, but or at least how I arrived at those breakdowns. But just so you get an idea, my estimate for total Scientology staff members, that's mission staff, that's Class 5 org staff, that's Sea Org staff, is 8,700. That's a generous estimate, and that might even be a higher estimate than Scientology itself puts out. But I just want, oh, no. They put out a bigger estimate for the number of Sea Org members, but they don't actually put out a number for total staff members. 8,700 total Scientology workers in the world. That's roughly 3,500 Class 5 org staff. It's roughly 200 mission staff. That could be a low number, but I'm being very generous in all of the rest, all of the other numbers, and about 5,000 Sea Org members. And again, we'll circle back and I'll show you how I arrived at those numbers. But for the public, I have in the Class 5 org world. Now, these are the orgs where you can join Scientology. There's 134 of them in the world. There's only 45 of them in the United States. Over half of the states of the US don't have a single Scientology organization in them. So for paying public, I have about 14,000 paying Scientologists who do Scientology courses and auditing at Class 5 organizations. For Sea Org delivery orgs, which have a lot of redundancy with the Class 5 org world, but I've estimated approximately worldwide 2,500 paying Scientology public who do their services specifically at a Sea Org delivery org and not also at their nearest Class 5 org. And then for the mission network, I've estimated about 500 public worldwide for the mission network to come to about 17,000 paying public worldwide for Scientology. So 17,000 public, 9,000 staff members, a generous estimate of about 26,000 Scientologists in the entire world. Now, I have an inside source that has been able to verify for me that in the early 2000s, the verified membership list of the International Association of Scientologists was approximately 50,000 people. And that number included only 40,000 of those members were lifetime members or above, and the remaining 10,000 were on either the free 6-month membership or the annual recurring membership. And the free 6 month, the portion that was annual and the free 6 month churned often enough that the total membership number would very regularly be actually down on a week-to-week basis. I was told that 50,000 membership number did not include people who had been declared a suppressive person and expelled, and it did not include people who had died. To the extent that they were able to keep their membership up to date. They did remove people that they found out had been expelled and that they found out had died. However, there are a whole bunch of Scientologists who are no longer Scientologists, but are not dead and have never been officially expelled. I know many of them myself. If you ask them if they were a Scientologist, they would say no. If their family members asked them if they were a Scientologist, they would say no. If the ethics officer said you need to come in, they would say, I'm not a Scientologist, go F yourself. But they're not declared a suppressive person and they're not expelled, but they were lifetime members. So those people would still be on the rolls. Okay, so that was a relatively accurate count back then of 50,000 members. I promise you, this 26,000 figure, if anything, it's generous. That means Scientology has experienced a 50% decline in membership over a 20-year period. That is absolutely devastating. And yet the title of this video, The Stunning Collapse of Scientology, is not because of the numbers that I just gave you. It's actually an analysis of Scientology based on a completely different metric. And that has to do with what David Miscavige calls Scientology's ideal organization program. It was a real estate strategy that David Miscavige started back in 2003 that he said was the solution for Scientology to take over the world. That's not a phrase I use lightly. Scientology's mission is to take over the world. To be fair, they only have to take over half of it. I don't know who came up with this. I guess it was L. Ron Hubbard. It's just, it's basically Scientology has this phrase called clearing the planet. And clearing means getting someone up to Scientology's state of clear, which means you no longer have your reactive mind. You're basically a perfect computing, analyzing, healthy, reasoning human being. Don't think about it too deeply, okay? So clearing the planet, getting at least half of the world's population into Scientology and up to the state of clear. The idea is that once you do that, the rest of it takes care of itself. Right? And this is called clearing the planet. It is the goal of Scientology. It is the goal of all Scientology staff members to expand their organizations sufficiently to accomplish this goal of getting half of the planet into Scientology and halfway up the bridge. The state of clear is about halfway up Scientology's bridge to total freedom. So there's just one problem. How do you clear the planet when there's only 134 Scientology organizations in the entire world? Now, I promise you, the number's 134. You don't have to take my word for it, although any ex-Scientology staff member could give you this number. Earlier this year, I had leaked to me, I guess I forgot to set up this screen share. I had leaked to me something that I had been wanting to get for years. I've something I'd seen every single week when I worked in a Scientology organization. And this was the weekly standings of a game that all Scientology organizations play with each other. And it's called the L. Ron Hubbard Birthday Game. Now, what the hell is the L. Ron Hubbard Birthday Game? Well, L. Ron Hubbard, when he was still alive, wrote up a policy that said, one year the staff members asked me what I wanted for my birthday. A chocolate cake? A tie, perhaps? And he said, no, I want expansion. And anyway, somehow in this, he says he sat down and he figured out that if every Scientology organization took their current stats and expanded them by 5.4x, Scientology would achieve enough expansion to essentially take over the world. Now, that was not true then. It's not true now. It never made any sense. Don't think about it too deeply. But in this issue, L. Ron Hubbard laid out, he created and started what has from then on become a weekly statistical competition between every single one of Scientology's 134 organizations in the world. And every single week, Scientology management publishes the results of the weekly birthday game and updates the results for the quarterly birthday game, and then gives the cumulative results for the annual birthday game to date, and sends these birthday game standings out to every organization in the world. When I worked at the Philadelphia organization, when I also worked in this organization in Los Angeles, we all looked at these standings every single week. And I always thought to myself, I just want to get my hands on a printout of the standings so I can prove once and for all to everyone who otherwise is just taking my word for it, that there really are just 134 organizations in the world. So anyway, I got a copy of the standings earlier this year, and let me just show you what they, let me see. So this is, you can, this is part of the page, but you can see about halfway down, it says class 5 org league. The class 5 orgs are the orgs where you can actually get into Scientology. Okay. Above that, there's Sea Org orgs. You can't get into Scientology at the Sea Org orgs. So you can see it starts at 1 at the top. And then I've got page 2, and you can see on the left, you've got the weekly. In the middle, you've got the quarterly. On the right, you've got the cumulative. And then I showed the last page here so that you can see. Let me try. I'll zoom in on this a little bit. 100 for the weekly standings. You had three organizations tied for 132nd place, but you can see that means there's 134 orgs. Weekly standings. Bulawayo. Is Bulawayo in South Africa or Zimbabwe? I don't know, guys. Nobody knows. It's one of them. You can see Bulawayo was in dead last place at 134th place. Okay, here's one of the reasons why my estimates have come down. And actually, I'm getting off track, but I know what I want to say in this video. In the previous video that I did, I estimated 175 Scientology organizations. Because I remember when I was looking at these standings every week, I remember thinking it was close to 200. Scientology has consolidated a whole bunch of its organizations for the purposes of the birthday game to make this list actually an accurate reflection of the number of physical churches of Scientology in the world. Here's what I mean. Some churches of Scientology have a day shift and a nights and a weekend shift, like Tampa. I live in Clearwater, Florida. The nearest organization to me, the nearest class 5 organization, is in Ybor City in Tampa. Tampa has 2 shifts. They call it Tampa Day and Tampa Foundation. They are not 2 shifts of one organization. Scientology treats these as 2 separate organizations. They have separate executive directors. They have separate everything. They're actually considered 2 orgs. And it used to be that both orgs had their own separate listing on the birthday game standings. Tampa Day, Tampa Foundation. Austin Day, Austin Foundation. San Francisco Day, San Francisco Foundation. But, and this is where it got confusing, not every church of Scientology operated that way. And there was no real rhyme or reason for which org had a day and a foundation shift and which org just had 1 shift. And the orgs that had 1 shift would still work the same hours, Monday through Friday, 9 in the morning to 10 at night. And I worked at the Philly org, and the Philly org just had 1 shift. There's no Philly Day, Philly Foundation. It was just Philly. So Philly would have 1 listing on the birthday game, but Tampa Day and Tampa Foundation would also each have 1 listing. Anyway, Scientology, but also it created an artificial count of how many Scientology organizations there were in the world. Do you see what I mean? You could look at the birthday game and think there was close to 200 orgs, but that's because half of them were essentially listed twice. All right. This birthday game standing no longer separates out day and foundation org. So it is now an actual representation of how many brick and mortar class 5 Scientology organizations exist in the world, and it's 134. Okay. So my org count went from 175 down to 134. And I also had to adjust down my numbers of staff members and public per organization. But I digress because that wasn't even the point I was about to make. This ideal org strategy. Oh yeah. How do you clear the planet with 134 freaking organizations? And even in the Western modernized world of the United States of America, 55% of the states don't have a single Scientology organization. Just for fun, guys, I'm going to read out to you every single state that has not even 1 single Scientology organization, okay? Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Delaware, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Jersey, North Carolina, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Vermont, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Now, in some of these states, there's a tiny little thing called a Scientology mission. We can talk about those later. That's not a real Scientology organization. It's not owned and operated by the mother church. It's not open full time. They open and close all the time. So like, I know there's a mission in Anchorage, Alaska. It doesn't even matter. Okay. And Scientology doesn't think it matters either. All right. How do you clear the planet with 134 organizations? David Miscavige came up with the strategy. He said the reason more people aren't getting into Scientology is because our buildings are not sufficient to offer the full panoply of all the services Scientology has to offer. Our buildings aren't big enough. Our buildings aren't beautiful enough. We have not been thinking big. We have not been thinking in futures. And L. Ron Hubbard said, thinking big and thinking in futures is the only way to win the birthday game. Okay, so David Miscavige started the Ideal Org strategy. He did it in 2003, 22 years ago. And the strategy was every single Scientology org, no matter how small it was, no matter how few staff, no matter how few public, no matter how little money it made, had to go and buy and renovate a 50,000 plus square foot building. Scientology was going to take care of all the space planning. Scientology was going to hire the world's best architects and design firms and construction companies. And there was one big catch, guys. No existing money could be used for this project. These buildings could only be purchased and paid for and renovated with newly raised, freshly donated funds. Now, that should have been the first red flag right there. Okay. David Miscavige said that with a new Ideal Org building, Scientology could not help but boom. And he started with 3 organizations. The first 3 organizations he used Scientology money for because it was supposed to be the test. It was supposed to be the test to show everyone that it would work so that everyone would then run around and raise new money to make it work at their organization. The first test was San Francisco, Buffalo, Tampa. Yeah, Buffalo, New York, where there's basically no Scientology. San Francisco, where Scientology was always pretty decent. And Tampa, where Scientology was struggling a little bit, mainly because it's in the shadow of Clearwater, Florida, where the biggest Scientology organization in the world is. But you can't join Scientology in Clearwater, Florida. You can only join Scientology over in Tampa, as far as the Class 5 orgs go. Okay, so Miscavige did these first 3 big orgs, and that was the launch of the Ideal Org project. For the last 23 years, Scientologists have been donating every cent, every dollar, maxing out every credit card, tapping out every line of credit, second mortgage, third mortgage, retirement funds, children's college fund, been giving every dollar they can to Scientology to pay for these giant new buildings. And this program has shown that not only has it not solved Scientology's expansion problem, it has in fact made it worse. It's come to a grinding halt. Scientology's decline has accelerated, and it has long since passed the point of no return. There was 134 orgs. Scientology has finished. Let me get the exact count here. I got all sorts of numbers prepared here. Scientology has completed in 23 years, precisely, exactly half of all of the orgs. Now, there's another very important element to this. Scientology has these upper confidential levels that most of the world knows about. They're called the OT levels, the operating thetan levels. That's where you learn about Xenu and the getting blown up in the volcanoes with the hydrogen bombs. And that's when you find out that you've got hundreds of thousands of sick, diseased, disoriented, unconscious alien souls stuck to your body that are making you sick and making you unhealthy and making you crazy. And that on Scientology's upper levels, you have to telepathically communicate with these beings. You have to get rid of their reactive minds so they achieve the state of clear, and they leave your body and they go and pick up a body of their own, and they grow up to be a healthy, sane human being. Those are Scientology's most treasured, secret, confidential, valuable, upper confidential levels. They go up to OT8. Okay. Every Scientologist in the world has been told that in order for OT9 and 10 to be released, because L. Ron Hubbard said they were released when he died. David Miscavige has been telling everyone these things are in the vault waiting to be released since 1988. Hubbard died in 86. It was about 88 that David Miscavige discovered there is no OT9 and 10. It doesn't exist. They went through all L. Ron Hubbard's research notes. They went through every scrap of paper and every file and every folder that he left behind. And there is no OT9 and 10. Okay. So, but Scientologists don't know that there is no OT9 and 10. Scientologists have been told since 1986 that once their local Scientology organization and every other such organization in the world reaches certain expansion benchmarks, OT 9 and 10 will be released, and that will be the key to taking over the world and unplugging everyone on this planet from the matrix, and freeing everyone on this planet, every being on this planet, from the prison planet that Scientology says is the role of Earth. We're all trapped here on this prison planet. The evil alien psychiatrist that imprisoned us here wipe our memories every time we die and shoot us back into another body to continue growing up, living another lifetime in the prison. And that only Scientology's upper levels can free us all from this prison planet and unplug us from the matrix. This is what Scientologists believe are at stake. That every one of these 134 orgs has to expand to a certain size. That size is called Saint Hill size. Okay, that's just the Scientology word for it. It means you've got roughly 200 staff. You're making roughly $100,000 a week. You're delivering a certain amount of Scientology auditing a week. It's just called Saint Hill size. Since I was a little Scientologist, I've been being, I left Scientology in 2014, but from the time I was a little Scientologist, my whole time in Scientology, all everyone in Scientology talked about was getting every org up to Saint Hill size, so OT 9 and 10 could be released, and basically we could save the world. All right. Well, if David Miscavige says that opening up these new ideal orgs is what will allow every org to go Saint Hill size, then why wouldn't he use any new money? Why wouldn't he use the money in the bank to pay for these orgs? Think about it. If an ideal org would result in a massive influx of people joining Scientology, those people are called public. They're paying public. They pay to do Scientology. If an ideal org results in a massive influx of paying public, which then becomes your recruitment pool for staff members, and if those public would generate a lot more money, and it would expand, and it would generate more money for the organization, and then the organization would have more money to fund the next ideal org project, and then that would bring an influx of public in, new bodies, new members, new dollars, new staff members. The Church of Scientology International has a lot more money, and there's a lot more public. Exponentially, this thing would exponentially. This is a program that would take care of itself if the program worked. If the program worked, as David Miscavige said, the further we got into the project, the faster the rest of the project would be completed. Scientology has gotten to a point where it has taken them 20 years to finish the first 67 ideal org projects, and the whole project internationally has come to a grinding halt. And not only do they so they have no more money. The Church of Scientology International has run out of members and money to fund the remaining projects, which shows the first half of the project was a complete failure. They've already finished half the orgs in the world, and those new buildings for those orgs didn't bring in new Scientologists and new money. The fact that and also it took 20 years, you guys. Guys, when David Miscavige announced this project in 2003, do you know how long he said it was going to take to do every single org in the world? I'm not kidding. He said 12 months. He said 12 months. It's 22 years later. The project's only half done, and it's completely stalled. There's more to the story. In the United States, there are only 44 Class 5 organizations. 10 of those organizations have not completed their ideal org project in the United States. I'm going to read for you the 10 cities that in 22 years couldn't raise enough money to buy and renovate their new building. New York, Celebrity Center, New York, Long Island, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Albuquerque, Honolulu, Puerto Rico, St. Louis, New Haven, Battle Creek, Michigan. All you need is the first 3 cities to tell the entire story of Scientology. Okay. New York City is the largest city in the entire United States. There are no social or economic factors in New York City that would prevent people from joining Scientology that don't also exist in every other city in the United States. Except what New York City has going for it is the most amount of people in a city in the entire country. There's there's 4 Scientology organizations in New York City. There's the one right in Manhattan. And that was one that David Miscavige paid for with Scientology money already in the bank, because he did it for Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise wanted somewhere to bring VIPs into Scientology and have it be beautiful and gorgeous. And so I think it was when Tom was doing War of the Worlds. Did War of the Worlds film in New York? I remember Tom wanted to bring Spielberg into a beautiful Scientology organization, and he told David Miscavige, I got nowhere other than the Celebrity Center that I can bring him. And so the Manhattan org was paid with money from Scientology reserves. There's also Harlem, which is near New York City. That was also paid with Scientology money in reserves. It's a funny story, right? How did that happen? Isaac Hayes was the most famous Black Scientologist. And once upon a time, he went to David Miscavige and was like, how come there's not more brothers in Scientology? And Miscavige was like, oh my God, Black people in Scientology? How are we going to do this? Now, keep in mind, there's already orgs in Philly, Atlanta, St. Louis, Detroit, Chicago. But Miscavige, he's a real genius. And he's like, Black people, where do they keep those? And he probably had to check with his wife, Shelly. He's like, Shelly, where do they keep the Black folks? And she's like, she probably had to look it up. She's like, Black people? Geez, I haven't seen a Black person in a long time. There's hardly any Black people in Scientology, you guys. And so Miscavige did some research, and he's like, Black people, I know where they keep those. Harlem and Inglewood. So that's right. That's it. David Miscavige handled the problem of how to get Black people into Scientology by using Scientology reserves to open up a brand new organization in Harlem and Inglewood. And then he got every Black Scientologist he could find and tried to get them to join staff there. But there aren't enough Black people in Scientology to do that. So I challenge anyone to walk into the Harlem Church of Scientology or the Inglewood Church of Scientology. Count how many white people are working there. Scientology is like 98.5% white. And the remaining isn't Black. The remaining is just all other non-white demographics. Anyway, it's hilarious. I digress. There's 4 Scientology organizations in the New York City area. Manhattan, that was paid with Scientology money. Harlem, that was paid with Scientology reserve money. The other 2 orgs in the biggest city in the country have not been able to scrape together enough money in 22 years to buy and renovate their new building. Long Island and Celebrity Center, New York. Guys, the Celebrity Center New York is less than a mile from the main Scientology ideal organization in Manhattan. And in the biggest city in the world, with one of the most beautiful Scientology buildings in the world, even the Manhattan ideal org hasn't generated enough new Scientologists who have enough new money to help pay for the other buildings. Oh, because that's the other thing, and maybe I should have mentioned. Originally, David Miscavige said that the Scientologists responsible for paying for their ideal org were the ones who lived right around that ideal org. But then the orgs that had the most and the richest members got done quickly, and then everything else very quickly stalled. And so the Miscavige started telling people, okay, good, now that you finished your org, you have to help your closest org. And then once that was done, they were like, okay, good, now you have to help all the other orgs in your state. And then they were like, okay, good, now you have to help all the other orgs in the West US. And then like, okay, now you have to help all the rest of the orgs in the United States. And so do you see my point here? The Scientologists in the Manhattan org, in the biggest city in the country, almost the world, right next door to the Sea Org Scientology Continental Management Unit, which is also located in Manhattan, can't even get enough money to finish Long Island and the Celebrity Center, New York. That's all you got to know. If you can't do it in the biggest city in the country, you can't do it anywhere else. Scientology has run out of money because they've run out of members. Because the Ideal Org program not only didn't work, it made the problem worse. It didn't bring any new people into Scientology, and it massively increased the overhead on the existing organizations after they opened their new buildings. These orgs that have Ideal Org buildings can't afford to pay their electric bill. They're told not to use the elevators. They're told they can't afford the air conditioning. Honestly, truthfully. And one of the reasons I had to adjust down my estimate for the number of staff members and public in each org is because I got real-time updated numbers. One particular, the most recent one, was from the Salt Lake City organization. The Salt Lake City org is one of the orgs that has already its new Ideal Org building. If you live anywhere near Salt Lake City, good Church of Scientology, Salt Lake City, go in, whatever you see there, that org is that building that you see there, that is supposed to be the premises that was supposed to expand that organization to the point where OT 9 and 10 could be released. Well, I got on the phone with the executive director of that organization a few weeks ago, and I had a little chat with her, and she told me there's only 3 staff members. She said everyone else was training in all the other members of their executive team were in Clearwater, Florida for training. How many people could possibly be on that training team? 10, 12, 15? It's not more than 15. So Salt Lake City, an org that's ideal, an org where it's the only Scientology organization in its entire state, 3 staff members. And maybe if you add on their executive team and then maybe some new excited recruits, maybe you've got 20 staff members. Okay. By the way, for you folks who might live in some of these cities and might just for fun want to drop by and see what a Scientology ideal organization looks like, there's only 34 of them in the United States, guys. If you live in any of the following cities, drop by this org, recognize it's an ideal org. Send me some photos of how empty it is, if you don't mind. Here they are. Here's the 34 of them. Las Vegas, Nashville, Atlanta, Austin, Buffalo, Chicago, Cincinnati, Columbus, Dallas, DC, Denver, Detroit, Harlem, Inglewood, Kansas City, Los Gatos, Miami, New York, the Manhattan office, Orange County, Orlando, Pasadena, Phoenix, Portland, Sacramento, Salt Lake City, San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, Silicon Valley, Stevens Creek, Tampa, Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minnesota, Valley, Ventura, and the Los Angeles, Oregon, L. Ron Hubbard Way. Boom. That's it. Those are all the ideal orgs in the United States. If you live in one of those cities, go by the org, go like peak business hours. And actually, you know what? For Scientology, peak business hours are actually on the weekend. If you go into a Scientology organization Saturday, right when lunch is ending, lunch breaks from 12 to 1. If you go into a Scientology org at 12:15 and you hang out until 1:15, that's absolutely the busiest time. Because most Scientologists work. So the 2 busiest times of the week for a Scientology organization is going to be Thursday morning before 2 p.m. because they end their week at 2. So it's a frantic dash Thursday before 2. Oh, yeah. These organizations that I'm talking about, I see someone asking, can anybody walk in? Yes, anyone can walk in to anyone can walk into these organizations. This is where brand new people are supposed to join Scientology. I lost my train of thought. Oh, 2 busiest times of the week. Thursday before 2 p.m. and Saturday or Sunday after the lunch break would be the busiest times. Check it out, guys. You'll see. If Scientology can't succeed in New York City, it can't succeed anywhere. If Scientology can't succeed in Orlando or Miami, it can't succeed anywhere. If it can't succeed in Los Angeles, it can't succeed anywhere. Now, what Los Angeles has going for it is there's so many organizations in a small period, in a small area, in a small region, that it looks like Scientology has taken over. That's, part of the reason they do it that way there. It's also the reason they buy so many buildings here in Clearwater, Florida, is just to make it seem like it's so big they're taking over. And it's the opposite of that. They're buying those buildings just to make it look that way. Okay, let me see. Some of the other, so some of these other cities. So like, Philadelphia. Philadelphia is the 6th largest city in the United States. It is also the only Scientology organization in all of Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Delaware. And that's the org I used to work at. Guys, anyone who lives near downtown Philly, go by 1315 Race Street. You're going to see a tiny, empty, failing, dirty, rundown hole in the wall called the Church of Scientology of Pennsylvania. At its peak, we maybe had 50 staff members. I don't think they have 10 staff members. They may have 5 staff members. Anybody can walk into the Church of Scientology and ask for a tour. Go to the 2nd floor, look in the course room. There's only on the 1st floor, there might be an introductory course room. On the 2nd floor is the main course room. Go into in any of these organizations, if you guys go in and you get a tour, say you want to see the academy. The academy is the course room for the major courses. I want to see the academy on a weekend at 1 p.m. Okay, if you go into an org, when I said the busiest time, I sort of meant when you would see people walking in and out. But in the course room, Saturday and Sunday, 1:30 p.m. should be the absolute most people in the course room at one time. Go into an org, ask for a tour, ask to see the academy. Let me know if there's even one person on course. This is the sorry state of Scientology. The reason the Ideal Org Project is dead in the water is because Scientology is out of new money. And the reason they're out of new money is because they're not getting new members. And the reason they're not getting new members is because the Ideal Org program was a failure, but it was designed to be a failure. And you know that because David Miscavige refused to use money in the bank for any projects other than vanity projects for Tom Cruise. If David Miscavige had faith that the Ideal Org program would bring new public into Scientology and would expand orgs, bring new public, new money, he would use his money in the bank to finish each org project. He doesn't believe in this project. It was never to make the orgs go St. Hill size. The reason that was never the purpose of the project is because David Miscavige can't afford to have all of the orgs go St. Hill size. If that happens, he would be forced to release OT 9 and 10. But his big secret, the big lie, the big con of Scientology since 1986 is there is no OT 9 and 10. The Ideal Org Project was just a fundraising initiative, a little fundraising scam. And it was also a way to blame the public and the staff for why OT 9 and 10 hasn't been released. All Miscavige has to do is sit back and say, I'm waiting for you guys to put your shoulder to the wheel and finish your local Ideal Org projects. I can't release OT 9 and 10 until the orgs are St. Hill size, and the orgs won't go St. Hill size until you finish the Ideal Org projects. If Miscavige used his money to fund the Ideal Org projects, he would basically just be rushing to get to the finish line where there's no award to give out. So it's funny, you know, I said he can't afford to have the orgs go St. Hill size. There's another thing he can't really afford. He can't afford to have every org in the world already finish its Ideal Org program and have all the Scientologists in the world looking around and wondering why nothing changed. How does Miscavige explain why Scientology couldn't expand even after every org in the world executed his brilliantly evaluated strategy? That he took all of Scientology and had all of Scientology work on one strategy for 20 years. And it's going to take another 20. Well, I mean, it'll take more than another 20. This Ideal Org program will never finish. So let's just take the last 20. He took all of Scientology and had it focus single-mindedly on one strategy that was supposed to result in expansion. And it did the opposite. This is why David Miscavige is not looking very healthy these days. David Miscavige is getting to the end of the line. He cannot keep this charade on for much longer. But he's not going to be alive for much longer. He doesn't have to keep it going for 20 more years. I don't think Miscavige has 10 more years to live. And Scientology is dwindling faster than ever. These palaces, these 50,000 square foot cathedrals, they're empty. The staff don't get paid. There's no income. No one's joining Scientology. There's no way to fund the rest of the orgs. Even with all Tom Cruise's money, Bob Duggan's money, Tom Cummins, Nancy Cartwright, all these heavy hitters. If I were Bob Duggan, Bob Duggan's probably donated over $500 million to Scientology. If I were Bob Duggan and I had heard the message, we want to release OT 9 and 10. We want all the orgs to go St. Hill size. The ideal org strategy is the key for that. Money is the only key for the ideal org strategy. If I donated $500 million, I'd probably start asking, why didn't you use some of my $500 million to finish the rest of the orgs? Right? So let's say an org project maybe cost $10 million. If I were Bob Duggan, I'd be like, if I gave you another $500 million, do you think you could finish the rest of the project in the next year or two? If the Scientologists believe that what they're all here for is to save all of humanity from an eternity of amnesia and imprisonment on this planet, wouldn't some of these guys start to wonder and start to ask, is money the holdup here? I thought I gave you enough money. Do you need more? And what about the first half of the orgs that have already been completed, and the Scientologists and the big donors in those orgs can see they're empty? So Miscavige, as a part, Miscavige is aware that the first half of these cathedrals are sitting there completely empty, right? And so he's created a new training program to train brand new command teams for every single Scientology org. And those teams have been in training for almost 4 years now. And some of those teams have started returning home. And this is supposed to be Miscavige's new solution for it. We've got the new buildings. We need new command teams. And you know what those new command teams are doing? They're doing TikTok videos. The Scientology staff members, who are the new stars of the TikTok videos of Scientology's new TikTok accounts, they wear this green, almost all of them wear this. It's kind of a big green colored, it looks like a shield. It's a design. It's Scientology's symbol for standard administration. If you see a staff member wearing a pin and it looks like a shield and it looks like it's green colored, they are one of Scientology's new, freshly trained by David Miscavige command teams. And they're doing TikTok videos. People should start asking them about that in their TikTok videos. Like, hey, how long? But the training program that they did is called the new OEC FEBC. Scientology love its acronyms, guys. OEC stands for the Organization Executive Course, and FEBC stands for the Flag Executive Briefing Course. And if you finish the OEC and the FEBC, you have studied every Scientology policy letter L. Ron Hubbard ever wrote, and there are tens of thousands of them. And what's cracking me up is to see someone having spent 4 years studying tens of thousands of L. Ron Hubbard policies and getting thousands of hours of interrogations, and they're out there handing out personality tests. And I want to say, ma'am, you could have handed out the personality tests without all of that training. It's absolutely incredible. So David Miscavige is honestly very quickly coming to the end of the line. And it is so interesting to see how many people in the real world continue or fall for this trick that Scientology pulls of acting like it's the fastest growing religious movement on earth, and they have tens of millions of members worldwide. And I tell you guys, I promise you, It is 26,000 members worldwide. The number has decreased by 50% over a 20-year period. Scientology has entered its final tailspin. It's I want to call it a death roll, but I don't know if that's the right word. And yeah, that's what's up. I don't know if you guys are really interested in how I came to what my estimates are. Let me give you some of my estimates. Okay. So for a class 5 organization, I'm using an international average of 25 staff members and 100 public per organization. That is a high estimate. All right. For Sea Org delivery orgs, but you know what? There's only like 8 Sea Org delivery orgs in the entire world. So honestly, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. We don't have to get into all those other numbers. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's it. Let's go through some starred comments and let's see what you guys think about this. Constance June, the Scientology numbers trending downwards. Dave Owens, great job clearing the planet, Aaron. Donna B, this is what happens when you don't allow members to have children in the Sea Org. You know, I have a different take on that. If Scientology were to expand generationally through procreation, the way, you know, for example, the Mormons do, and the way Muslims do, and I guess Christians, it wouldn't be by Sea Org members having kids. You wouldn't want the Sea Org members to be the ones having kids. The Sea Org members would be like the clergy members in the Roman Catholic Church. They're not the ones that you want having kids. It would be the public Scientologists that you would want procreating like crazy. And yet Scientologists don't have big families. And I truly believe that one of the reasons is there's no incentive to. It's not possible to afford that. If you have like 6 kids, you can't afford to have all of them do Scientology. And so you end up sending them to go work full-time for the church. But it's like, that's kind of contrary to your sort of natural maternal or paternal instinct to have kids. Is you want to keep them at home. You want to love them. You want to have fun with them. You want to, watch them grow up. You want to, have them go. You don't want to just send them off to work for a cult. And so Scientologists don't have many kids. Anyway, yeah, that was my thought on that. Mark Thomas says they only need 7 billion more to clear the planet. Yeah, the math really didn't work out on their favor. It turns out people on planet Earth are procreating faster than Scientology can expand. So while the population is growing, the Scientology population is shrinking. So it's not working out well. Caroline H., the fact that Natalie knew who the 2 guys in the Minnesota org TikToks are, it just shows how tiny Scientology is. That's right. F. Din, will Scientology ever sell buildings and consolidate around a few locations? Tons of empty buildings is a massive waste of money. So here's my answer. As long as Scientology has tax-exempt status, the answer is no. Scientology doesn't pay property tax on any of these massive cathedrals. They also don't have any overhead for staff. Staff members usually don't get paid. That's because staff members get paid a percentage of the adjusted gross income, and that's calculated on a weekly basis. So if no money comes in, nobody gets paid. If no money comes in on week 1, but some money comes in on week 2, all the bills get paid and management gets paid, and then the staff members get a percentage of the money that's left over. So my point is, even if Scientology runs out of money, they don't have to pay their staff. So they don't pay their staff and they don't pay property tax. So the only thing they have to be able to pay to keep those buildings open is the electric and the water. Now, and maybe some insurance, but I doubt it. I bet most orgs don't even have insurance policies. I bet they can't afford to keep them up. Okay, so most of these orgs do not actually make enough money on a weekly basis to even pay their electric bill. But the mother church, Church of Scientology International, and the International Association of Scientologists, does have enough cash in the bank to, even just based on interest on its holdings, to come in and rescue these orgs to keep their doors open if that's what it came to. As long as Scientology has tax exempt status, you will never see them close one of these 134 organizations. If they lose tax exempt status, you will see them having to liquidate property eventually. All right. Xenu Golf Club. You'd think that if they wanted to clear the planet, they would have built orgs in the 26 countries where they have no representation. And most of the 167 that do deem Scientology, And most of the 167 countries that do deem Scientology non-religious or occult. Yes. I see what you mean. Yeah, and you want to talk about taking over the world. Guys, when half the states in the US don't have even one Scientology organization, it's amazing that Scientologists have been able to be tricked for so long that they're doing so well. Miscavige literally calls Scientology the fastest growing religious movement on earth. What did I say? What was that state? Alabama? Alabama's a big state. Not a single Scientology org. South Carolina? South Carolina? Are you kidding? Yeah, they could open an org like Greenville, South Carolina, and Spartanburg. Is Spartanburg, North Carolina? Is Spartanburg, South Carolina, North Carolina? I forget. But you know, there's a lot of people and a lot of money in the Carolinas. Not a single Scientology org. Maine? There's a lot of money in Maine. Yeah, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Washington. Wait. Washington. No. Why is Washington on here? No, Seattle. There's an org in Seattle, so that shouldn't be on here. New Jersey. Not one sign. You can't. Not one org in New Jersey, and these guys think they're taking over the world. It's crazy. Okay, CO Bilf. What will this mean for the annual Day versus Foundation Sydney org rap battle? Farrell Cheryl. Yeah, I am not a Mormon because I don't like their buildings. Yes. Yeah, I don't think the buildings are the reason people aren't joining Scientology. CO Bilf, Buffalo expansion stymied by powerful SP, Clearwater Chad. That's right. Clearwater Chad is actually Buffalo Chad because that's where he actually lives. Hanley, is there stats for South Africa, Johannesburg, Kiliami, or Pretoria? I went past the Johannesburg building this week. Not a single car. Well, when you say, are there stats for it? Like, I don't have their stats. But I was actually surprised when I was putting this org list together this week to see. Let me pull up how many orgs there are in Africa. Okay, in Africa, there are 4 orgs. There are 2 in Zimbabwe. Okay, I did not know that. Okay, I did not know there were 2 orgs in Zimbabwe. So you got 2 orgs in Zimbabwe, but nothing in New Jersey? And so Kiliami Castle, you know, that's a Sea Org organization, and you can't join Scientology at the Sea Org organizations. And so like the Scientologists who are doing their Scientology at Kiliami Castle are also doing Scientology somewhere else, either before or after. And so they're already included in the class 5 org counts. But yeah, that's all I have to say about South Africa for now. Sharona, I think this is the definition of word ideal used. What? I think this is the definition of the word ideal used as an adjective that Davey was looking for. Oh, existing only in the imagination. Not real or actual, a concept. Yes, that's funny. CO Bilf, the ideal orgs are a way to hoard assets and make it look like you're spending money and doing something. Jeff Augustine, Rome was not built in a day. Church of Scientology, do you think Miscavige meant 12 lifetimes until the ideal org project was complete? Fat Cat's Heaven, what is the reference on ideal orgs and releasing OT9? Is there a flag order or something? Okay, so, you know, the reference is actually either a Ron's journal or an LRH ED or an LRH ED. There's LRH ED 339R and LRH ED 339R-1. And I think one of those is called The Birthday Game and the other one is called The Make Break Point. And there's also some Ron's Journal lectures about this. So I believe it was in either 339R or 339R-1 where, you know, it is said that, you know, OT 9 and 10 are going to be released when every org reaches St. Hill size. And then every other subsequent OT level after that, the only requirement for it to be released is that enough Scientologists have finished the previous levels and are ready to receive the next level. So all of the upper levels are contingent on orgs getting to St. Hill size. And the ideal org program was supposed to be the magic key to make orgs go St. Hill size. And it's been a complete failure as Miscavige intended. Miscavige is not actually intending to make these orgs St. Hill size because there are no OT levels to release. Every training evolution, every new program, every new eval is just a way to shift the blame and the responsibility onto the staff and public of Scientology so that Miscavige doesn't have to explain why he doesn't have OT 9 and 10 to release. SA, good to see you. The release of OT 9 and 10 were dependent on all current orgs at the time of LRH's death going St. Hill size. Exactly. David Miscavige changed the goalposts to ideal orgs instead, and thus could avoid releasing OT 9 and 10. So I have a different take on what you're saying here, which is true. He did shift the goalposts, but interestingly enough, he shifted the goalposts to something that was theoretically attainable. Theoretically, you can create an ideal org. They've already done 67 of them. But what it did not create was a St. Hill size org. See, in Scientology, there used to be orgs that were St. Hill size. There were a bunch of them. Orange County, California had been declared St. Hill size. Most of the orgs in Italy, Milano, Padova, I believe, had been, I think Berlin, Hamburg had been declared St. Hill size. See, back in the early days, Scientology was actually growing. Scientology felt different back then. It's become more militant. It's become more controlling. It's become more fascistic. And it started becoming that way when L. Ron Hubbard created the Sea Organization in 1967. And then it got worse and worse and worse. And then when Miscavige took over, he made it even worse and worse and worse. But there used to be St. Hill size orgs. So the idea that you could create a St. Hill size org was realistic to many Scientologists back then. And then all of a sudden, it just stopped happening. It just stopped happening. Around the early 90s, mid 90s, organizations stopped expanding it altogether. And organizations that had previously been declared St. Hill size were all of a sudden small failing organizations again. There is, as we sit here right now, not a single St. Hill size organization that's not a Sea org. So like the Celebrity Center is a St. Hill size organization. The ASHO on L. Ron Hubbard Way, even ASHO, the American St. Hill Organization, not St. Hill size. AOLA, the Advanced Org, might be St. Hill size on a revenue basis, but not on a delivery basis. And so I guess, Shelly, what I'm saying is that L. Ron Hubbard said all of these orgs had to be St. Hill size, and Miscavige changed it to ideal orgs. Yes, and that was so that, the implication was once you have an ideal org, it will go St. Hill size. And that has proven to be completely false. Me and Taz, flunk. Love, Maddie, I still keep getting calls to go to Scientology events. And I was only in for maybe a year back in 1979 and 80. So they still include me as a Scientologist. How many times do I have to tell them to F off in order to be declared? The only way you would be declared is if you publicly, non-anonymously, spoke out against Scientology on the internet. That's what you would have to do, and it would work. Amber Vanass, I went to the Chicago org a few months ago. I saw maybe 2 people inside. I gave the camera the middle finger. Relative time works. Scientology does own a tall building in downtown Philly that was never developed, and people have been suing to make them sell. That's right. And you know how many years ago they bought that building? About 18 years ago. No, 19 years ago. And do you want to know how they got the money to buy that building? That was the first Scientology building that was not paid for with all cash. Now, the cash was turned over to Scientology, but that was the first time that public Scientologists got together and took out a giant bank loan for the money that was needed to buy that building, and then turned that money over to Scientology. And then Scientology bought that building. They went into debt to buy the building. They had no more money left over to pay for the renovations. And that's why the building has sat there untouched, unoccupied, vacant, decrepit for 19 years. And that's in the 6th largest city in the United States. It's the only organization in all of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. And all they could do was go into debt to buy the building. And it's been a total failure ever since. That is the story of Scientology everywhere else in the world. Because all these other cities, most of them haven't even been able to scrape enough money together to even buy a building, much less renovate it. Okay. SA. The other lie that Scientologists don't know is that their donations that buy these buildings are owned by Church of Scientology International, and that every org pays massive rent to CSI every week, thus keeping every org bankrupt. There you go. Irina Posner. Good to see you, Irina. Also, if Scientology grew so much that everyone is old St. Hill size, what? All right. Also, if Scientology grew so much that everyone is old St. Hill size, all the orgs are old St. Hill size, he might just as well feed into AI all of Hubbard's lectures and then have AI write OT 9 and 10. People would buy it. Yeah, I mean, that's what it might come to. Lily B212. It's like the Field of Dreams idea. He's built it, but no one comes. SA, that's why they're colloquially known in the ex-Scientology community as ideal morgues. Pause for Andrea. How many times would you guess that members had to buy the same materials just repackaged? I mean, in my lifetime, it's happened like 3 times. And also I should say, in my lifetime, not a single new Scientology organization has been opened, except for the Harlem and the Inglewood story that I told you guys earlier. Izzy B. Angel, good to see you, Izzy. Orange County's ideal org is located in Santa Ana, California. Not the best location, and probably why there is a mission close to higher income areas, coastal. What location would be best for a visit? You definitely want to go to the org, not the mission. Even these new Miscavige has started opening ideal missions. That was my first inspiration to sit down and reevaluate the numbers and do this video. Because I was like, orgs are supposed to generate missions. If Miscavige is now diverting revenue that should be going to open more ideal orgs, and he's diverting that revenue to directly open ideal missions instead of opening orgs that will open missions, it is him desperately trying to cover for the fact that the ideal strategy has come to a grinding halt and has no hope whatsoever of being finished. So go to the mission if you just want to see, but the mission is not really where Scientology happens. They're small, they're empty, they're not even open all the time. But you want to go to the main org. You want to go to the main org. Thank you, Izzy. Sharona, another great idea by Davey that will do nothing but fail. TikTok Scientologists trying to answer questions, but end up admitting to things like the guilt of Danny Masterson. Exactly. SS1, why will David Miscavige be dead in 10 years? Oh, I mean, because he's like over 65 years old. And sure, I know people can live until 90 easily, but I don't think David Miscavige will. Okay, Izzy says, like and subscribe. Indeed. All right, guys. Well, I didn't intend for this to be a 1-hour video, but I think we had a nice chat and this was fun. And I thank you guys for hanging out with me. Today's protest day. There's one more video I want to squeeze in before I go out for the protest. We'll see if I can get to that or not. But anyway, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. And talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.